What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Round Ball Roundup. We got a great call out for Zach on this one because Coastal's been on fire as late, and we're going to call this one Wave of Wins to kind of go with that Coastal theme. But before we get into that, shout out to our sponsors, Don't Sleep Energy and Phenom Elite. They've been really active in the portal, signing some new athletes to the Phenom Elite brand. And obviously, if you're trying to stay awake with us now, Don't Sleep is a great option for you. But Zach, most of us in the Sunbelt will probably be affected by this massive amount of snow some of us are about to receive. And we were just talking about how much you guys got down there last year. You may surpass that soon, huh?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how much we're supposed to get, but I heard something about potential snow this week, and then I checked the weather, and it says it's supposed to snow. So we'll see. We'll see how much we get.
Yeah, kind of the same way here. I don't mind the snow. I've spent time in Pennsylvania. You've spent time in Indiana. So, the two of us are pretty used to it. But down here in the South, the thing that I feel like is bigger at play and larger to worry about is the ice, because that's hard to handle. Much like Zach down there in Conway and the Myrtle Beach area, being here in the Triangle in North Carolina, no one's really ready and prepared for that type of thing. So everyone's going to take the milk and bread off the shelves, right, Zach? And I'm going to be just fine with that because I'm going to take the chips, the popcorn, the Pop-Tarts, all the easy stuff that can be made. I guess popcorn, but most of the other stuff I'm mentioning does not need to be heated or cooled. So I'm going to be taking the snacks off the shelf.
Yeah, well, you said that people down here aren't prepared for the ice. I mean, people here in Myrtle Beach just aren't prepared for even like a flurry of snow. True. Like it snows for like 5 minutes and everyone starts freaking out. No one knows how to drive. It's just bad.
Yeah. I talked about that with like schools releasing early and stuff or not going at all. And my wife brought up a good point. Like if the schools did try and get a half day in before they let kids out, if it started to snow in the afternoon, the problem is everybody would then hit the streets at the same time. People would leave work at that same time, and it would just be a mess. So sometimes when they end up canceling school or class, it does end up making sense, even though like half the day was usable, because it's just a massive mess. Like you said, people freak out and then they cause a bigger incident. I was at work one time and I waited it out. I let a good amount of snow accumulate before I bothered coming home because I knew there would be less people on the road, less idiots, shall we say.
Well, I mean, a few years ago, I think it was like maybe my first or second year here, it rained. It was like 45 degrees and rainy, and like people were walking around with like winter coats and like no one was driving. It was like, I'm like, this is nothing. It's like 45 degrees and sprinkling. Everyone's got winter coats and blankets and no one's driving. It's just like, good God.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's probably like, you've probably seen this down there. Like in Indiana, people would be, in jeans and maybe a sweatshirt in that type of weather.
Oh,
but
yeah.
In the South, like people are bundled up to the T, and it's like, all right, you don't need the winter hat and gloves when it's 50 degrees. It's like, it's chilly, but you don't need to go all out. That's a little overboard.
No, like when I go up there, like over the winter, it was like 40 degrees and I was out there playing basketball in a sweatshirt and shorts, and I get to 40 degrees down here and I'm like freezing.
Yeah, it is weird because you do adjust for sure. I've done that since I've come off the mountain. Like I just don't have that winter coat built up on me personally anymore. But yeah, you still try and tough through it a little bit when you know you've experienced it and you can kind of get through it. It's just funny to see all that stuff that I have no interest in disappearing off the shelf. I got a guy beside me at work who's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go grab some beer." It's like that's his big concern, is to just make sure he's stockpiled on beer before the snowstorm hits. Which, if you got nothing else to do, maybe that's your go-to. But let's get to why we're really here, which is the basketball, Zach. And again, we've talked about it. This one's called Wave of Wins. A shout out to your Chanticleers down there in Conway. Just looking like they've turned a corner, and I'll ask you specifically about that as we go along here. But shout out to the Shots. Baseball season's around the corner, but basketball ain't over, and we've got a lot of exciting stuff that's been happening this week. Before we go any further, the standings. All right, so we've got a couple of big movers. You've got Troy, Georgia Southern, Southern Miss, South Alabama, Arkansas State, Marshall, and Georgia State over there in that kind of top 7. Once again, we do not have an East and West in the basketball conference. We've got App State, Coastal Carolina, Texas State, ODU, Louisiana, JMU down there at the bottom, and ULM. We'll start off with who's in first place, Zach. Troy was in 4th last week. After 2 games this week, they've jumped up to first place. This is kind of where we expected them, though, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, they're the team that won last year. They kept a lot of people. I know. I think they lost 4 starters, but they're a team that's always going to be up there. They're gonna develop their guys. They're gonna play good defense. They can score with the best of them. Yeah, so they're always going to be up there in the Sun Belt as long as Scott Cross is there.
I agree. That guy just knows how to reload and have a roster that seems like it's a true family over there. Keeping Dowd was one of the biggest and best things they could have done this offseason after the year he had last year. Arkansas State, last week, 2nd place. This week, they've dropped down to 5th. Is this a big concern? Was this just a tough part of the schedule for them? Where are you thinking the Red Wolves are headed kind of going further into this schedule this week?
I mean, the 2 teams that they played were South Alabama and Troy, and and they're both above them. They lost to both of them. It's going to be tough in the Sun Belt, I think, just because look how close everyone is. Everyone from Georgia Southern down to Louisiana is within 2 games. So you lose 1 game, or like Arkansas State did, you lose 2, and then all of a sudden your positioning in the standings are drastically changing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Shout out to Matt Review 2 and Manny Lopez for joining the show. And as always, Mr. Artie Cat, Mr. Texas State himself, hopefully having a good time here as the Bobcats continue to close out their time within the Sun Belt. Someone saying junior. I'm not sure what that one's about, but so I agree with you. That is just a tough part of the schedule, and we'll look back at some of those games from last week real quick before we get into this week's action. But we do have one big mover. Everyone else was really just a spot or 2. I just wanted to mention the big movers in the standings. James Madison falls from 9th all the way down to 13th. This is not where they're accustomed to being, Zach. Is this a long-term concern? Is it just another part where they're playing some tough teams? I mean, what do you think of the Dukes at this point in the year?
I think they haven't really shown anyone that they're like the James Madison teams from previous years. So, I mean, for this season, I think this is kind of what they're going to be. Maybe they climb up a few spots. I think they can. But, they lost App State, Marshall. Well, they got South Alabama and Texas State coming up. And then they got Troy after that. So they're in for a treat here.
Yeah, treat is one way to put it. That is a good ULM still bringing up the basement down there without a conference win yet. We'll see if they can change that going into this week. So covering a little bit about what happened last week, we had Southern Miss taking on Troy. They lost that game at 91-65. I think was Dowd the top scorer in that one, if I can remember right.
I believe
so. Campbell had 30 points in that game. And then, Zach, I'm going to have you take it from here. This game, I'm sure that you were paying attention to. Your Shants take down the Herd.
Yeah, that game was crazy. It was basically a 2v2. It was basically Dantzler and Beetle versus Spear and Otshuti. And late, Spear fouls out like with a bunch of time left, and he's kind of the main guy. And then they go to Otshuti, and it's pretty much Otshuti and Beetle just scoring on every possession back and forth. and eventually Coastal sneaks out that one. But yeah, I mean, it was really good, a good game, high level guard play as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, the Chants get the better of the herd, 85-83. Beetle went for 26. Shooty went for 30.
And
so like
Dantzler
you said,
had 26.
Dantzler had 26 as well. Jeez.
Yep.
Yeah, just an insane game there. Beetle also led the team in rebounds there, so he was just all over the place in that game. And then Jones had a pretty decent game that day too, I think.
13.
13, yeah. All right. Texas State gets by the Cajuns in a close one, 59-54. That was Wednesday's matchups. I'm going to go into Thursdays now. We had App State taking down JMU. I wrote this one in the article. James Madison has only beaten App State one time since joining the Sun Belt. So App State absolutely has their number, handled them at home easily in this one. I think it was Tate that really woke up and played very well. Sorry, not Tate. I was thinking of Todd, but I'm wrong. It's Dodd that had the big game in that one. Georgia Southern has a close one with ODU, 87-84. And was a Tyron Moore had the leading score in that one with 21, although Davis Jr. for ODU had 20 in that one. And then, Zach, what did we see in the overtime game with South Alabama taking down Arkansas State 91-87?
Yeah, another high level basketball game. Just two really good teams going at it. I thought Arkansas State was going to sneak out with a win, and I think they forced it to overtime, and then South Alabama wins in overtime. But really good atmosphere and a good crowd as well. I know they handed out jerseys to the first however many students as well. But it was a fun game.
Yeah, I like how some Sunbelt teams, not to get off on a tangent, but let's be honest, the Sunbelt basketball attendance is not where anybody wants it to be. You have to be almost undefeated or a ranked team for people to come and pack your house most of the time. There are a few exceptions, but schools need to do fun stuff like that. I know, Zach, you said Coastal's done something like that last year.
Yep.
Did they give out a jersey or was it something else?
Yeah, they did. They did 2 or 3 jersey giveaways last year, and then they did 2 jerseys last year. They've done a jersey this year. They did a tumbler, but it was only to like 50 kids or whatever. And then tomorrow or Thursday, they're doing scarves, like winter scarves, which is kind of funny with the storm coming up. But
I was going to say that's a perfect one right now.
Yeah, it's like they're doing like a winter themed game where like students are supposed to dress up in like winter gear or whatever.
Is it really warm in that gym though, or is it not too bad? Is it pretty comfortable?
I think it's. I mean, I sit like right under a vent, so it's pretty cold. But it's like they have to keep these gyms cold because the players are out there running around and stuff. And then you factor in it's a small gym that doesn't fit a ton of people, so it's not like one of these big gyms where like everyone's packed in and it gets hot.
Yeah, I went to locally here. I've been to one Duke game where they played App State because I had to kind of try and get my way over there. Got in there and immediately, as soon as you sit down, you're like, it's hot. Like it doesn't take any time. And like you said, those gyms where people are right on top of each other, that one is one. It is kind of a cool atmosphere for a game. It's a historic place, but it is not enjoyable because you typically, basketball's played during the winter. You're walking over in some kind of heavier coat, at least a pretty good sweatshirt with a long sleeve underneath or something, long pants. And then you sit in this gym, probably still would have been warm in a short sleeves and shorts outfit, but you can't wear that in to this gym. But I guess that's partly the atmosphere that also makes it so hot in there with all the movement of the student section and everything else. But just interesting to see what you thought of the Coastal arena with the temperature. I know I've been into App States and that one's pretty decently sized. It doesn't seem, when it's packed, and I've been in there twice when it's been packed, it can get warm, but in your typical game, it's not too bad. I do want to shout out Chase Harris, 38 points in that overtime game. So absolutely went off. And I think he won an award for the Sun Belt this week with that performance.
Yes.
Pretty sure.
Was it? Yeah, I think Sunbelt Player of the Week. I think
that would make sense. I mean, with that kind of a performance,
I feel like every time I watch South Alabama, he goes off. So maybe South Alabama fans want me to watch him more because I think literally his best games of the year have come when I'm watching him.
There you go. That makes sense. He probably wants you to keep watching him as well. So, shout out to you for making sure he has his good games while you're watching. Tyler Austin joining the show saying, so glad football season is over now so the JMU Love Fest can end. Let's go Trojan Hoops. Yeah, I saw a lot of JMU love on the interwebs today because, well, Indiana won it, and they have here, I have this paper right in front of me. They have 7 former JMU players on staff. They have 5 other former Sunbelt members on Indiana's roster, and they have 17 total players from the G5 or G6. So there's a reason why people wanted Indiana to win. Obviously, JMU fans are going to think they had a little piece in that. I think a lot of other fan bases would have that too. That does not mean we're claiming any kind of national title over here on the Sunbelt side of things, though. So we do have to keep that in mind. We had a team in it. They didn't win it. So I don't agree with the people that want to push like JMU had a large part of it, but I don't know. Zach, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not happy about the result of last night.
Yeah, that's true. Did you stay up for the whole thing? Because it went pretty late.
Yeah, I was watching. I was so excited. Miami was driving the field late in the game. Thought they were moving. I thought there was going to be a storybook ending. Carson Beck in his home stadium going on a game-winning drive, but then he underthrows a receiver by like 15 yards and right to a defender.
Yeah, he definitely. That was an ugly one. That one was costly. I guess a lot of people are pointing out how many games have ended like that for him, which isn't a great thing for playing at the next level. But,
I told my friend whenever Indiana blocked the punt, I said, I don't care how much time's left, this game's over. Like, you don't block a punt for a touchdown in a national championship game and lose. Like, it's like part of the script. Like, you can't lose after that.
That's kind of, I mean, in the game when James Madison played Oregon and the same type of thing happened to them, right? They had that kick that got blocked by Oregon for the touchdown. You really felt like there was no chance of them coming back.
That's the type of play. That's the type of play that's gonna like go down forever, and like you can't just lose after like an all-time great play like that. Especially like when Miami's defense is like just absolutely shutting them out at that point.
Yeah, they had really. I guess they only allowed that one score in the second half? Is that what it was? I can't even remember now. No, that was 2 scores in the second.
That first one in the second half, but they had 2 third-down penalties that led to the touchdown in the first half.
That's right.
So if they get off a field on one of those, and then they missed a field goal, and then they threw a pick Miami really beat themselves.
They did absolutely. I called that game Indiana 24, Miami 17, so I wasn't too far off, but I did think it was going to be close. There was no way Indiana was continuing to beat people by like 20 and 30 points. Like it couldn't continue. Miami's line is very strong on both sides of the ball. They weren't going to be pushed around. That was evident in that game. I will say this, it was a great game. It was a great game to watch from an outside perspective when I had a little bit of a rooting interest. I wanted to see, the consistent, not good football team and program kind of come up and actually win it. Keep the U quiet, but I know you were the opposite because of the Purdue factor.
Yep.
Oh man. All right. Back to the round orange ball that we're talking about here. We had a full slate Saturday. Well, not quite a full slate. We didn't have every single team in the conference go. We had almost every team in the conference go. ODU gets by App State 75-73. App State really struggling to kind of string 2 conference wins together. It seems like they just continue to alternate wins and losses as they go through the slate there. And then Zach, overtime again, but this time included your Chanticleers taking down the hot team in the conference, Georgia Southern 79-75. Tell us about it.
Georgia Southern kind of blew this one. I had to go pick someone up from the airport, so I watched like a lot of the late second half and overtime in a car in an airport parking lot. So it was kind of hard to watch it, but they foul Beetle up 3 with 3 seconds left, and he makes the first one, misses the second on purpose, and the backup center for Coastal gets the rebound and one with 1 second left, and then he missed the free throw and goes to overtime. But
wow,
yeah, it was nuts. Rasheed Jones I think he had 28, and for a large portion of this game, he was like their only source of offense. Like they couldn't get anything besides him. And then for Georgia Southern, Tyron Moore, career high, I think 30, 34, 36. But yeah, every single game that Coastal plays, I feel like it's just going to be high level guard play because that's how they want to play.
Makes sense. And it seems to be working here recently. Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. Tyron Moore, 34 points. So, yeah, absolutely. Some really good performances from the guards so far. And, I mean, we kind of expected that, right? That's where our conference seems to be strongest because we don't have a whole lot of true centers that are very dominant thus far. I would say Marshall's probably got one of the more dominant centers in the league. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I got the kind of the stats pulled up. We don't really have like any like dominant bigs. We have like Tyleek Weeks at Southern Miss, Justin McBride at JMU, and Adam Olson at South Al. The like good forwards. Same with Thomas Dow, but yeah, it's pretty much all guards.
Yeah, heavy guard play, which makes sense. I mean, when you can't necessarily recruit easily the big men, because typically those big guys that are 7-footers are getting pretty good offers at some of the bigger schools.
Yeah, if they're good enough in that size, they're not coming to Sunbelt.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate, but makes sense. I mean, I think we've seen some size with hasn't ULM brought in some guys that have been like 7 foot, but they've been like foreign guys and they just haven't.
Yeah, they have a bunch of strong. Yeah, they have a bunch of like 6'10", 6'11" foreign guys. Then obviously Marshall has 7'4", Matt Van Komen, but.
Yeah, I like his game. I like his game because he plays a little strong too. Instead of just some of those 7-foot guys are so lanky that you're just like, all right, you don't have to jump and you can reach pretty good, but you've got no like muscle mass to back somebody down and get to the rim hard and make it impossible for somebody to stop you. What was the guy that played for Purdue that was a monster?
Edie.
Yeah. Yep, that kind of guy. I mean, we're not really going to see that in the Sun Belt, but you can have a player that plays more like that, kind of a dominant big there. Back to the scores. Georgia State takes down ULM 77-57, a 20-point victory in that one. The Cajuns jump up and surprise South Alabama, one of the better teams versus one of the worst teams record-wise in the conference right now. They get that win. The Cajuns do 59-56. Zach, you say you saw some of this one, or
no? No, I didn't actually. I saw I saw the game winner. Louisiana hit a game winning three with like a second left.
Yeah, I did see that too. Tori Trahan been doing some stuff for us for the website and just social media wise. Definitely shared that clip out. I think I reposted it after he shared that out. Harris went from his 38-point performance to just 18 in this one. Just an off day, shooting just 9 of 15 from the field. Only had 2 free throws, missed both of those as well. So just not a good night. I mean, just a couple different shots for him, and this game looks a little bit different, right?
Yeah. I mean, but when you take that many shots and score that many points, you're gonna have nights where you miss a lot as well.
Yeah, very good point. Tyler, I see your comment there. I like that, and I'm gonna equate it to basketball, but we're gonna get through the scores here, talk about this upcoming week, and then we'll end with that comment because I like it. I want to see what Zach's thoughts are on some of that as well. And then Zach, the freshman that Cajuns were kind of excited about, now injured and out for the year, right?
Yeah, I saw. I think someone reported on Twitter today. I forget who it was, but their starting freshman Joshua Lewis is out for the year.
That's tough. I mean, you get that win over South Alabama, whether that injury occurred in that game or
no, it was
after that game.
It was before this past week. These last two games, it was before that.
Oh, it was before that. Okay.
I don't know if it was in the game like 3 games ago or like in practice, but it was before this game. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, then that makes that win and upset even bigger then, honestly, because if you think that player that everybody was excited about, it wasn't even on the court for that one. That's a pretty big win there. Marshall gets back on their winning ways with a 77-72 victory over the Dukes of James Madison in that one. And Spear, once again, like you mentioned earlier, standing out. Van Komen, 13 rebounds in that game. So Marshall gets on the board there. And then Troy absolutely hammers Arkansas State in this one. 99-74, a 25-point difference. I mean, Zach, there's no way you saw that one coming, right? Because I'll admit that I did not think that game would be out of hand. I thought that game would be close.
Yeah, we both thought that game would be close. I'm pretty sure a lot of people thought that game was going to be close, but Troy's kind of in that mode right now where they're playing their best ball, and hopefully, I mean, for a lot of teams, they hope they slow down, but they hope they keep that up for the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And if Dowd and Valdez continue to play like that, like they did in that game, that's going to be tough for people to stop. That, Campbell's been hot too, but Dowd and Valdez probably like their most consistent, tandem of guys that they're going to be counting on. At least it seems from the stat sheet type of thing. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And then, we'll end it with that Southern Miss team that we thought, not to their own fault, but we thought could be fraudulent based on the standings from last week. And then we see them fall a little bit here. But they got some help from some teams that didn't win as well to stay towards the top of the standings. But they do lose this game to Texas State, 74-67. And I was trying to see, I think our boy Caden Gums stuck around at Texas State. Did not lead all scorers, but he did lead Texas State with 18. Weeks over there that you mentioned earlier for Southern Miss had 24 on 8 of 15 from the field and went 8 of 10 from the cherry stripe. So he's getting down low, like you said, and getting some points that way, huh?
Yeah, that's his game. I mean, he's only shooting 8% from 3. So he's one of those forwards that likes to work in the post.
Yeah, it would seem so. All right, let's jump into before we move on, Zach, was there any other notes or news from this past week you want to share or jump right into this week's schedule that's coming up?
Nope, not that I have. Don't think so.
Yeah, I think the big one was, like you mentioned, Louisiana losing their freshman for the year, unfortunately. Never want to see that happen. Troy, though, tomorrow at this point, or today, if you're listening to the audio version, on Wednesday, Troy will travel to Norfolk to take on the Monarchs. I don't know how much there is to talk about this. We've got Troy up here at the top of the standings, literally number 1, and we've got Old Dominion down here at 12th place, 11th place right now as it stands, but they're 6-14 overall on the years. Is there any reason to think a team in Troy who's almost hit the century mark in their last 2 games has any kind of struggle on the road with the Monarchs?
I mean, they should expect a win, but it could be a trap game going all the way up there from Alabama into a Old Dominion environment that we know always has good crowds. And Old Dominion they do have some guys that could give you 25 or 30, but no, Troy should still win this game.
Yeah, and one of those guys is a guy that you know pretty well from last season. Played right there at Coastal, right?
Yeah, Jordan Battle.
Yeah.
And then Robert Davis, who was the preseason player of the year, who's having a really rough year, has been pretty good the last few games. So it's probably a good sight for them to see him start get going.
Yeah, I think he had a really good game against App State. App State, previously taken down James Madison pretty easily, and then ODU showed up in Boone and took a game from the Mountaineers. So you're right. I mean, maybe this one does surprise. Not sure what the spread is on this one, but maybe you take ODU to cover if you're a betting man. All right, that is Wednesday's slate. One game. That's it. Thursday, we've got 6 games coming at us. We've got the Cajuns going to Boone to face App State. ULM traveling up to West Virginia to play the Marshall Thundering Herd. South Alabama at James Madison. Arkansas State at Georgia Southern. Texas State traveling your neck of the woods to face Coastal Carolina. And Southern Miss on the road in Atlanta to take on the Georgia State Panthers. Zach, I think there's no question about the number one game on Thursday night being Arkansas State traveling to Georgia Southern, right?
Yeah, two good teams at the top of the conference. Going to battle. Arkansas State coming off two losses. Georgia Southern looking to bounce back after a tough home loss. So both teams should be up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Battle of top 5 teams in the Sun Belt currently. So we'll see what happens there. That's definitely the one to watch. But we've got to talk about your boys yet again. Texas State looking a little bit better here as of late, but Coastal probably one of the hottest teams in the conference. I think this one is kind of my number 2 game on Thursday night. The Bobcats and the Chants. You gonna attend this one? Yeah,
I'll be there. Texas State, I think I wrote today, they're on a 2-game win streak. Coastal 3, but this, like we said, pretty much all these games guard play. It's going to be for Texas State, Gums and Drone versus Dantzler, Jones, and Beetle, and those has a better game is probably going to win. Or if they cancel each other out, it might come down to the role players, but it's probably going to be whoever guards play better.
Don't disagree with you there at all. Again, those are the 2 games that I'm definitely checking out. I'll definitely check out the App State guys, since that's my team. But hopefully they don't struggle with the Cajuns too much, but we will have to see. And then Saturday, we've got 7 games for you. Everybody in the conference in action. ULM then travels up to Boone to face App State. Southern Miss comes to Coastal Carolina. And then Arkansas State in Georgia to face the Panthers, not the Eagles in that one. The Cajuns on the road to ODU, Troy at Georgia Southern, South Alabama at Marshall, and then finishing it up with Texas State at James Madison. Obviously, you're going to have some interest and possibly also be at the Southern Miss Coastal Carolina game. But which 1 or 2 games sticks out to you on Saturday's slate?
Definitely the Troy, Georgia Southern. Once again, Georgia Southern involved, welcoming the best team in the conference. And Troy that's another long travel they're going to have to make down to Georgia Southern, but Coastal just did that and won. So see if they can do it. And then South Alabama, Marshall for sure. South Alabama plays that weird, funky zone. It's going to be weird to see how Marshall approaches that with a 7-4 center and 2 guards. That can really get hot.
Yeah. That Troy, Georgia Southern, I mean, you talk about 2 good teams. They're literally 1 and 2 in the conference right now, so that's a great reason to circle that one and a very obvious reason. But I agree with you that South Alabama Marshall game is going to be good. And honestly, Southern Miss, could start looking like they had been at the top of the conference. I mean, they're still technically sitting at number 3 right now. They are 11-9 overall, so not blowing you away there, but they are 5-3 in the conference. So we'll see what happens earlier in the week and see how they come into Conway. But that could be kind of a sneaky close game, maybe. I think a lot of the other games, I mean, the Cajuns versus ODU, not necessarily the greatest 2 teams, but I think that game itself could be really interesting to watch. Same thing with Texas State and JMU, 2 teams pretty equal within the standings. Not necessarily with how they're playing, though. JMU kind of on the downside. Texas State kind of winning here lately, as you mentioned, that 2-game win streak. And then I'm not really sure what to make of ULM at App State. I mean, that's a pretty good travel as well. App State at home has been playing pretty strong overall. ULM's been, winless in conference, so we'll see if they can jump up and surprise App State at home. All right, I said we were going to get back. Any other last news notes on the Saturday stuff?
I mean, Arkansas State and Georgia State should be a decent one too. Georgia State is quietly playing some good ball right now against Arkansas State, who is coming off 2 losses. We'll see how they do on Thursday, but
it's a good point. Yeah, they did not start the season well, but they have won their last 2 Sunbelt games here on a 2-game win streak. So very good point. We'd get to Tyler comment. It does deal with football, so we'll kind of address it with the football aspect real quick first, but then we'll turn it into basketball as well and see what Zach has to think about this as well. He says there's something else to take away from IU, which is that collegiate athletics can now let a traditionally weak program become strong if you increase the average age of your roster. Now, Zach, we also heard this same type of rhetoric and thought process when it comes to baseball recruiting last year. We did a couple interviews with some staff members and players before baseball season went live. We plan to do that again this year. But they said they leaned a little bit less on the high school recruits and a little bit more on those more experienced players, maybe through JUCO, maybe, guys that had just hit the portal. So again, this question specifically is referencing football, but I think it's a really interesting take that could be rounded into basketball as well. We in the Sun Belt have seen a lot of our talented players get taken for more money to play at a bigger school or just another school in general. It doesn't necessarily have to even be a bigger school, but maybe somewhere that's just offering them more money. We have brought in quite a few players from the JUCO route, especially in that Alabama, Mississippi range. Is that something that you think could help specifically a Sun Belt school kind of be one of those bottom feeders that then kind of turns the stuff around for them?
I mean, that's just how college athletics are today. Like, why would you – I know this is kind of sucks to say, but why would you want to take a unfinished 18-year-old and develop him when you can take a 22-year-old who's got experience and is a lot better? But I think especially at the Sun Belt level, because you bring in this 18-year-old, and if he has one good year, he's immediately out of there. So
true.
It's a lot easier to do that at the high major level because they have more money. 2, and like that's where everyone wants to end up anyway. So it's a lot easier to build like full programs up there. But at the Sun Belt level, like I said, if you bring an 18-year-old by his junior year, he's probably gone. So might as well bring in these juniors and seniors who are a lot better. You don't have to develop them, and maybe you can get them to stay for their senior year and try to compete then.
Yeah, I as I've gotten older myself too, it seems like it would make sense, right? Like you got a locker room full of young kids that aren't physically developed for one, but mentally developed as well, right? Like I want a locker room full of leaders and guys that can brush off a loss and move on to the next game, right? And I feel like sometimes young kids maybe are too connected to that, and that one loss sticks with them too long. Sometimes you want that aspect in the back of your mind, right? Like that's what drives great players to get better, but you want them to do it in a certain way. And that probably comes a lot easier with experience, life experience, not necessarily just in sports. So yeah, your 22, 23-year-old kid or man is still more knowledgeable in a lot of those situations, but there's some young kids that are wise beyond their years too.
I mean, I do think that is also gonna that swing is gonna go down a little bit. I think we are gonna get younger eventually, just because we already started it's already started happening. Like the COVID kids are starting to get out of there. Less guys are getting these like 5th and 6th year waivers. So I mean, it is starting to go down a little bit. I think it's gonna go down even more because unless the NCAA does turn like full, like semi-pro, I do think there's going to have to, at some point, they're going to regulate the transfer portal and everything. So I do think eventually it will go it will go down back to like maybe like 10 years ago when we did see like a bunch of freshmen and them staying at their schools for several years.
Yeah, hopefully it gets some sense of normalcy and not quite the amount of movement. What did they say? The latest figure was like over 10,000 or 11,000 kids in the transfer portal for football. Like, it's insanity. Now, a lot of those kids weren't Division I FBS players necessarily. There was FCS, Division II, Division III. They were all concluded in that metric.
I mean, also
yeah.
Also like in basketball where they just announced like the transfer portal is only open for 15 days after the last game of the year. I mean, so stuff like that, even if it's just not like full regulations on eligibility, like just regulations on like the portal and stuff will also kind of help it get younger.
Yeah, that's true. I got a note on the portal here, but I want to get to Neil's comment. He says he's seen more grad students from out of the country. They are older, but very experienced. And some of those kids or people or men are coming in, and there's women too that are in other sports that are doing this as well, are coming in with actual like pro experience, whether it's semi-pros or whatever. We've seen Zach, there's like at least one or two guys from like the G League who have been brought back into college because they literally make more money to get brought back into NIL deals and collectives paying them than they will at the G League level, right?
Yeah, and then also I think the problem with that is like not only are they coming in from outside the country at an older age, it's that these like the NCAA is giving them like they're giving like a 22-year-old that has played professional basketball like 4 years of eligibility.
Yeah,
it's like what are we doing? But it's also like if you get a foreign kid, like you're not going to get them like they don't do like traditional high school and college like we do. You send them to if you want them to play basketball or if they want to play basketball, you send them to a professional academy at the age of 5 or 6, and they kind of grow up in a professional environment from that age.
I feel like we're getting closer to that model, which is funny because for years, soccer fans in this country have been saying, you know, why we're so far behind Europe, because those kids get developed in an academy, like you just spoke about, from a really young age. And guess how those kids get moved? Once they get older and they decide that they're going to move, another team has to purchase the rights from them with a transfer fee. But then that team still has to pay that player a salary as well. So that's, to me, where this evolution needs to come from, right? You want my star quarterback, you have to pay me for him. Then you still pay him, right? But like a transfer fee. Yeah,
like essentially you have to buy him out of his contract, basically.
Yep. And I think
like, yeah, I saw someone mention like, because Lamar Wilkerson, he plays for IU. I know he did something like out of his when he transferred from where was it? I think Sam Houston, somewhere in the Conference USA, I think, to IU to play basketball. He gave some of that money that he made out of his NIL check to his old school because he didn't want to leave them high and dry, and so he gave them some of his NIL money, or like just like put it something in the contract where like, okay, if this guy's making $100K at Coastal, you want to pay him $1 million to go to Kentucky. Some of that check, some of that money out of the NIL check has to go to the school as well.
Yeah, I think that's the only real fair way to do it because there's so few restrictions, and if that comes with more restrictions and there's not as much movement allowed, then there's another way to deal with it too. But if you're going to leave it how it is, at least put something in there that allows these cupboards not to be bare after a while, right? And we've seen some teams kind of reload. And James Madison lost a bunch of guys when Signetti left to loop this back into the football aspect. But they reloaded pretty well. That's not always going to be the case. And unfortunately, you have to think about the bad side of that, right? Because that's what we see far more often. And if you're a Sunbelt school and you're down at the bottom, it's really hard to climb to the top. Look at ULM in football. You think they're not giving effort and trying, but they bottom line, don't have as much money as most of the other teams in this conference specifically, but in all of Division I football as well. So it's really tough for them in this age of football to climb out of that basement and really get something done. Georgia State's kind of facing some of that same pressure. They're in Atlanta, so I think a lot more money is involved in that program, but it's hard to kind of get stuff moving. You know, there's so many other teams or programs that have been around longer and are ahead of you already. So we'll see where that stuff goes. I do want to make one other note here, like Zach said about the portal thing. For those that are thinking about football, if a player has entered their name into the portal and they have not been claimed, it's really not that big of a deal. As long as they got into the portal, they have two options. Maybe. They can come back to their same team if their spot hasn't been filled and the coach wants them back. But if that's not the case, they can still be claimed by another team. The downside is that third option that I'm just now mentioning is that nobody claims them. And their old school can't or doesn't want them back. So it's not all going to be good news in the end for some of these athletes. Obviously, this same type of thing happens in basketball as well. So you hate to see anybody's career end this way, but these players need better tools, better people surrounding them. Some of these agents are absolute sharks and doing these kids no favors, lying to them about how much money is out here or lying to them about how much money that was being offered by school X. And the agent has done that thinking they can try and get that money, but not knowing how that's going to go in the end. And then it never comes through.
I mean, it's not just happening with the agents. The St. John's men's basketball team just fired their GM because allegedly, like, the money wasn't lining up. Like, the school, like, supposedly they were paying this kid $600K and this kid $1 million, but then the kid gets $500K and $900K transferred to their bank accounts or whatever. So, like, the money's not lining up, and, like, sometimes it's the people within the school that are also doing it.
Yeah. Well, I think at some point the money's going to be dried up, right? I mean, Zach, you're down there at Coastal. I've been to App State. I've heard the people talk. Like, I cannot give more money to the school to have them pay kids to come play. I just, like, I'm not in that situation. I've got a family to sit here and worry about. Zach, you're out there grinding, trying to get a job and everything else. Like, you can't just give hundreds of dollars a month to your favorite school just because you want them to succeed in athletics.
I think that's also the problem with the whole NIL thing. It's like NIL was made so, like, kids could get a sponsorship from a local restaurant or get put on a commercial or be able to have their own YouTube channel and make money off of it, not for literally just billionaires to come and just hand them money for doing nothing. Like that. Yeah. The whole point of NIL is like, oh, I can sell stuff with my name, image, and likeness on the apparel, or like I said, right. YouTube, or I can go out and do a deal with a car dealership and do some commercial or whatever. It's not. Yeah. It wasn't made to just straight up just be like, let's find the most billionaires we can and just let them put pockets in the players' pockets or put money in the players' pockets.
You don't like the Texas State oil money that funded their entire football defense this year?
I mean, I don't like Mark Cuban for funding literally the whole IU football roster either. So, I mean, you can say that I can say that for my own schools too, like Coastal Carolina. Like, it's not all just straight pure NIL. There's definitely a bunch of people just put money in pockets.
Oh yeah. Those collectives, they started letting those collectives get out of hand, and then the way they get around it when that's not appropriate or beyond the level they're allowed to do is just behind closed doors working an NIL deal that's actually funded by somebody, within the school or within the donor base, and they just want to remain, nameless and faceless. So they let it tie to the local, like you said, car dealership or some small business that they're funneling that money through. Essentially, it's all dirty games. And unfortunately, the big guys have the advantage once again. Tyler saying he had no clue that JMU taxes their students with essentially an NIL fee. No school in the Sunbelt or those who have been here would or consider that. The schools are not in the markets to do that. I've seen a lot of stuff about this. It's the highest fee, I think, in the nation for student athletics. But there are other ways that schools are doing the same or similar, but hiding it under a different heading or bracket for where they're allocating funds, if that makes sense, right? Like essentially money that's being used is still going to the athletics department. It's just taking a turn or two where they're losing track of how much that is tied to student fees. So yeah, they are at least upfront with theirs. But at the same time, I'd be hard pressed, Zach. I don't know about you. If I'm a student and my team is making the college football playoff, winning Sunbelt championships, being pretty successful in a lot of sports, I don't know. Part of the reason some people go to schools is because their school is good at a sport, So yeah, you're paying for it. And some of those people that are going to school there, most of them, I would say, actually are just fine with it. Some of it's mommy and daddy's money too.
A lot more of it than you think too. It's like when I went to college, or when I started college, I was like, oh, like everyone's going to have student loans and all this stuff. And then I get here and I talk to 100 people and 90% of them don't have a loan. It's like, oh, my mom and dad, my grandparents are paying for it. It's like, oh, well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah. Yep. That's crazy to think about, that people have that kind of, because stuff has gone up, right? Like if they started saving a long time ago, they probably thought it was going to be half the price of what it is in today's society. It's just absolutely insane. All right. We are around the 50-minute mark here now, Zach. That was a great little way to end it, because it again kind of ties back into basketball, but it's about NCAA athletics in general. And we know that's always a constant topic of discussion. So I had fun talking that one out with you and Tyler and Neil in here. Any other news or notes you want to leave the people with before we get this Sunbelt action started tomorrow night, or today, again, if you're listening to the audio version?
No. Marshall hosts Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio just won a game in overtime to stay undefeated. They've won their last two in overtime to stay undefeated. So we're looking like we're getting closer to an undefeated team coming to Marshall.
That'd be cool. Yeah, the first one was Buffalo. Who was the second team they beat in overtime?
They won today. They beat Kent State in overtime today.
Oh, wow.
Right before we started this, they were down like 5 with like 2-something left.
Well, that'll be one heck of a game for a multitude of reasons. If we can get Marshall to host an undefeated team, that's also kind of a regional rival for them. So that would be cool. I hope that actually plays out. We got to work on our Max Sunbelt Challenge video as well, too. So we'll be doing that in the background. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you guys next week.